505. You're up next. Your name and where you're calling from?
My name is Caillou Badai, and I'm from New Mexico.
Hi, how you doing today?
Excellent. How are you?
I'm doing good today. How'd you hear about the show?
Last Sunday, Walking in Energy.
That's outstanding. Anything from the show jump out at you?
Much.
You have a call for
Nighthawk.
Huh? It was a
any
powerful
key to
show.
accept the call.
I'm
Hello?
sorry. I'm fine. I'm sorry. I'm just getting some lots of phone calls in here, and one was for the other part of the station. So
Okay.
sorry about that.
Couple of questions for you, if I might.
Sure.
I'm asking about the information about the full moon eclipse that's firing off today, the third of the series of 3.
Yep.
And if there is a perspective that is galactic, cosmic, planetary, blah, 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 and how it's moving us into a different position, if that is so.
Okay. There is a significant amount of energies that are coming out of these full moons, and this full moon energy is backed up by solar energy, and the solar energy is basically amplifying anything that's soul family, anything that's ancestral spirit related or soul family related in your ancestral line is being amplified 100-fold, and that's what all 3 of these full moons are about. We are in a situation where we have a separation of soul families, a separation of soul societies, a separation of dreamtime societies. And this energy is to bring that back into balance, quite literally. And last year there was a very specific series of full moons, as well as solar eclipses, as well as solar storms. And that purpose of that also was to amplify and modify what was going on. So what's going on with you right now is your soul family's energy and your clan that you function with is being modified in such a way that the crown chakras, heart chakras, and root chakras are being opened up in such a way that you're going to be receiving a whole new layer of soul family information. Do you understand that?
I absolutely do. I'm wondering also about the Pluto-Neptune square Neptune, the lifting of the veil, and how that influences this as well?
I'm not a big proponent on astrology, though it does have its foundations in some truth. Our astrology was built from the ground up, and anything that's built from the ground up in this world has been modified to fit the systems of domination and control. But to answer your question, when Pluto comes into a perspective in the way you're describing, it is representative of the ability for the consciousness to reach out beyond the layers of our solar system. Pluto's purpose when you live there is so you expand your consciousness, and you work with a series of crystalline systems that are built into the planet that are called the psychic telescopes. They're many, many millions of years old, and souls go there to learn the functions of them so they can remote experience every part of the different parts of the universe, as well as to learn about the various processes of remote viewing and remote experiencing other worlds. For a very long time, Pluto was a very lost world because it had been captured and recaptured many times because of its ability to scout in a war-type scenario. Pluto was very much damaged as a planet, and then it was teleported into the middle of nowhere where no one could find it, where it spent many millions of years with no life on it whatsoever, until finally it was found and brought here to this part of our solar system so it could once again function as part of the machine of ascension and wouldn't be used as a tool of war. So from that perspective, Pluto's purpose is to expand consciousness and to not be used as a tool of war.
Very cool. Could you expand a little bit from that chat earlier in the week about the access to neutral walk-ins in Absolute Prime Creator's invitation at this time period?
Okay, the Galactic Prime Creator, Universal Prime Creator, this is referring to the question about the audit and the walk-ins that came after it. It was a process that was done because both the light and the dark had gone into polarity so much that they couldn't understand anything from the neutral perspective. So it comes down to the point that management needed to be replaced, And the only way to replace the management was to find souls who are willing to go into a body and literally take on the contracts of somebody in the upper crust or middle crust or top of the crust management. And that's the way it actually functions because those original management people are so ingrained into the timeline wars that stretch back 52 million years that if you remove a being completely, the whole timeline falls apart and nobody gets to have their graduation date. So those neutral souls that are put on are very powerful, and what they're going to do is come from a completely neutral perspective and literally change the organization from within. Any other questions on that, or you want me to expand further?
I wanted to know, I would like for you to expand, yes, but I also would like to know if the individuals are full walk-ins or if they're braided.
They're absolutely full walk-ins with the contract to take over all other contracts that soul has.
Okay. Has the Council of 12 completed its changeover?
No, it's not. It'll be done on the 21st of June.
Okay. And then timelines, insight and information about timelines. I was very clear on the timeline issue in, I guess it was June of 2011, and having it being collapsed to one focus. In this world, how are timelines created by the individuals that are here?
Through our dreams. As beings, when we dream, we are infinite, manifesting, co-creating beings. When we are awake, we are finite, limited, manifesting, co-creating beings. And when we become used to living on multiple timelines and then we become to a singular timeline, our dreams and our awake part of our mind, it comes down to understanding that the body, the dreaming body, exists within the intestines in the center of your gut there. And oftentimes your intestines holds psychic information that your dreaming body has to filter through every time it goes out of the body. And that's actually the filter which creates the first part of the dream, which becomes the manifesting infinite side of ourself, because the dream world has to process what the body and mind is telling it. And if you're so overloaded with this negative information in your gut, that's where we become manifesting those alternate timelines or ghost timelines again.
So the idea of lucid dreaming or being consciously awake in the dream state is something that's really important at this time in order to control the personal dream state in order to manifest the one timeline?
The one timeline is already here, and it's being supported by many different types of extra-dimensional and biological entities spread throughout the galaxy that are all here in a unity. There's 5,280 different species and many different vessels that are stationed outside of Saturn right now. And their purpose is not to interfere with us, but to make sure we don't destroy ourselves through self-creation and co-manifestation of negative concepts brought on by the propaganda of the domination and control system. So, as I said in the show, they could extend this out 20 years. The dream world is absolutely vitally important for us to have. We are coming into the time where we're going to be a unified Dreamtime society, and that's going to play out many different ways. In the show I described that there's going to be, 5,800 different local realities, dream realities, based off of the setup of the sacred geometry cities we have. And until we begin to deconstruct those concepts, we're going to be limited to that expression of the reality.
Do the dream cities that you're talking about have any correlation to cities of light?
An example, I'll use New York City. New York City at one point had 2 different cities of light in it, but both times
I'm aware of that.
Both times it was removed from this part of the dimension with technology, and one time it was actually psychically attacked by the people of the city during a riot that was purposely caused. Those cities are accessible only through the dream world in the North Pole. So technically they're still there, but the access point to them is within the Aurora Borealis.
So so in a way that the cities of light, have been certain individuals that I'm aware of have been asked to re-anchor those cities at certain specific lat-long positions over the last couple of weeks. Are you aware of that?
Absolutely. And that's actually in conjunction with the off-world entities that are trying to make sure that the energy of the manifestor beings, of the asleep people, is not redirected into self-destructive habit patterns like earthquakes, tsunamis, or any of those things, or Planet X, Nibiru, asteroids. That's what's going on with those energies, and those people being asked to anchor those different cities of lights are quite literally needed, and we need thousands upon thousands of more that are willing to invest their energy into that dream world and lucid dream world concept.
Thank you. Sweet. I so appreciate your willingness to come forward and be present at this time and share.
Well, I thank you too for coming forward, and I know that it was a big thing for you to have those questions. And as I'm looking into you, you have a big mission ahead of you, and you know it.
Yeah.
So
I do.
Have faith. There's millions of us that are out there that'll help. We just need people to step forward and be willing to face the ignorance and intolerance for a few months. That's going to be prevalent, and that's really what you're battling, not the education or the person behind it. It's just the ignorance of the facts that multiple dimensional cities exist everywhere as do beings all over the universe.
Mm-hmm. I had one other question. There has been, it's about the solstice in June,
mm-hmm.
and about it being the end of the quarantine, so to speak, or the end of that holding period. Let's put it that way.
I call it a timeout.
Okay, timeout. End of the timeout. So, what is the immediate shift that happens at that point?
The management system that is not walk-ins gets to act again, and the management system that is walk-ins gets to act with its management structure that may not exactly like it because they know they're walk-ins. And the fact that all the trickster spirits, who are basically the low-level thug enforcers, are no longer taking any orders from any levels of the management, which includes the neutral walk-ins, and they're forming their own unions, and their purpose is to go after the hierarchy of the Council of 12 at all angles, and it's to expose them so they can get off of this world.
Oh.
So
Okay.
the answer is immediately, well, action takes place, but it's the management has to reassert its power over the management structure. And the biggest issue with that is many of the upper crust management. 208, you have to mute your mic. I got a lot of feedback from you. 208, you have to mute your mic or go someplace silent. So what's going on is the management structure has to reassert its power over the people that it's been dominating, controlling for the last few thousand years as bloodlines of people that are in a DNA line that have been under the thumb of these people. And many of them are in such contractual obligations they will not stop. And in fact, many of the lower management are giving the middle finger to the upper management and are saying we're the new management. So the management has a management crisis within its own structure.
It sounds that way, and it feels that way. Oh my! Well, Andrew, thank you.
You are welcome.
Yeah, I appreciate your insight and look forward to more.
You're welcome. I'm going to be doing another show after this show on Wolf Spirit Radio. It's as soon as I end here, I'm going to be doing another show all about what's going on present, and it's all about the timeout and what goes on after it.
And that's immediately following this one?
Yep, 4 to 6 Eastern.
Sweet. I thank you for the heads up, and we'll continue listening.
Okay, thank you. Next caller is Tuesday. Okay, take it easy.
Many blessings.
Many
Bye.
blessings to you too.
What else will be some of the impacts that we can look for as part of the signs that we're truly in the wave of awakening and
the dreams like I've described before?
All right.
It's going to come on subtly, and then people are going to go, where did this all come? And they're going to look with hindsight, it's been here a while. There'll be a lot of people that'll deny their dreams, but how often can you deny your dreams if you're having them 4, 5, or 6 days a week and shit coming true?
Right. So that's like in a sense, it's like a bleed through of the truth.
Yes.
And a dispelling of the illusion, so people will start seeing what's really there.
So they can see no time.
Yeah. And that's led by...
No social agreement time.
No,
to clarify that. No social agreement
time.
Time we're living on is a social agreement.
Right, and that will... Because there is no time.
There's no time defined as social agreement. There's galactic time, which is based off of your solar system in revolution from the galactic central sun, and your solar system is a sine wave that represents the total population of consciousness on a graph of energy.
So here we are at Mount Shasta, and
the city of Telos there.
The city of Telos is...
I've been finding myself, how do I describe this? Existing there, and existing here, and existing other places at the same time. I'm here right now, but there's a part of me that's on the mountain looking at the mountain and the sun setting. And that energy of the sunset is being transmitted to me here, so I may stay in this quantum field of no energy and make the Akashic record open to any question.
Now, what about the stargates?
Good question. The stargates are based off of our womb chakras. A stargate can open in a womb chakra, and that DNA wisdom and the physical inhabitants there can be transported through our sun to any planet that has our soul codes, our solar system that has our soul codes. This world has a complete set of soul codes to all galaxies.
Wow. So this is a very advantageous place to be, as difficult and horrific as it has been.
It's the piece of the pie everyone wants.
Wow. Wow.
That's why this drama has been gone on and on and on and on. There were galaxies that weren't even created yet, and we still had the soul codes to them.
Wow.
That's the crazy part.
Yeah. Interesting.
Now, I've also said in many interviews, not only am I connected to the Akashic record of this world, but 20,000 other worlds. And to be the galactic historian, you have to have lived in all of those worlds and been true soul family to all of them and had true love with each member of that soul lineage. When I interfunction with all 20,000 Akashic records as a single one, at times there's a perspective difference. And me, the human, has to create linguistics that help us understand. Some of the information that I brought up has actually disturbed some of the other galactic entities that are listening into this conversation, because they do. They listen into many of our shows because they're observing us and at the same time allowing the information to go through them, because there's stuff that they don't know. And doesn't make me special. I'm in no field. I'm reading the quantum energy simply because I'm allowing my heart space to exist and allow the flow to be complete. So I'm at a point where all 20,000 Akashic records are single now, and I've understand all the different perspectives. And all these different perspectives that are coming out are what helping these beings that are enforcing the quarantine to give them more hope. To give us hope, to reclaim our sovereignty, reclaim our free will, to get us on the path of being whole species, in unity instead of disunity.
Right. I don't know anybody that's not completely saddened by the disunity on this planet. Every direction you turn, you see it, you feel it, you experience it, and that's something we need to break through.
Right.
Which is why we're doing this show, or this interview, so that we can move through the fear and the hopelessness.
Get beyond it.
Right.
I mean, I know there are people that are having difficulties comprehending this. And at times you'll have to go through and listen 2 or 3 or 4 times. I've done other shows where they've gone viral, and the shows that brought you you here, I speak in layers, and I'll be absolutely honest. I speak in layers because I'm speaking to each and every one of you individually and as a complete archive. Mm-hmm. Everyone that's listening live and everyone that's listening in the future archives, you exist right now in this no-time field. Mm-hmm. And the energies of the Akashic Record, you are bringing to this energy, even if you're not listening to it until this exact second. You hit play and you see me saying this. Okay?
Yeah.
Here right now, there are millions of people listening to this, for me.
Yeah.
But there's just 3 of us in the room right now.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's amazing.
Here's one from Sherry. How many Ascension Timelines are there? 1. Did the eclipse energy change energy or merge them like Magenta Pixie described in her Mandela Effect video? No. So no and no. Now I can expand on no and no. There is only a single Ascension Timeline. And whatever Magenta says is her point of view, and you're asking me my point of view, as long as you separate the emotional connectedness between what you wanted my answer to be, you'll understand why I said no. I see all timelines. There were timelines that were shut down and new timelines that were opened. And they are regularly taking people on this timeline and putting them on other timelines because they no longer serve this timeline. But there are times when you put them on the other timeline, they shape up and suddenly come back onto this timeline. That is what is going on now, the separation of densities, the bifurcation. There are some that get yanked out of the reality and go, shit, I make it up, I'm doing my work, and they get back into the reality. So there are new ones being opened, there are parallel ones being opened. It is far more than what one person is saying. Again, I'm challenging you at the scale and size at which you think. There is a surface world, a subsurface world, and an astral world that all use their own signature frequency form of time that is completely independently separate and not codependent on any other frequency of the time. Our world, human world, global narrative world, is dependent and codependent on Roman numeral time. If you understand the dependency and codependency of Roman numeral time, you understand why there's such a limited way to explain what a timeline is or isn't. Linear time itself was created solely for this reality, solely for this galactic ascension machine. It does not exist in any other place. It is what was created to resolve repetitious paradoxes in which our celestial process or arm of the galaxy, our star cluster, was stuck in a repeating pattern because we had uncreated our section of the galaxy, which uncreated the section of the universe in the perception of time of lineage-based beings who were battling themselves to prove what era of light was more potent. There is a string of time that comes from ancient eras that is still a small thread within our thread of our timeline that is still 10 trillion times more potent than any of our surface beings, because at that time beings had a whole different light era function. So until light mechanics are truly understood, these are pontificating philosophers pontificating in word salads. That will be another good one. And that's not meant as an attack.
We all do this for free. We all do this out of our heart. We all do this because we wish to share. Sam's been doing this, 15 years now, Sam?
I've only been on the air for about 5 years, I think. I don't know. I lose track of time. When you love what you do, it doesn't matter, you know?
Exactly. Well, you've been a psychic for quite some time.
Yeah.
Yeah, same here. to the point where you don't even want to say that how long it is, but we do this out of love, And there's so many things that you and I have similar concepts. And when I first was aware of what Sam's show was, I was a listener. I'd been out of radio for a while, and I was listening to Sam do some of these galactic readings, and I was like, it's like me. And at one concept, when I was reading, and I don't know, there was this time that I saw the future, literally saw the future, but it wasn't this future in this timeline. It was a future in a different timeline, because right now we're going to actually go through about 4 or 5 shifts in timelines. One of the concepts I brought up to Sam yesterday was the phantom timeline. And I want you to think of the concept when somebody loses an arm or a leg. There are times that they still think that arm or leg is there, and that's called the phantom limb syndrome. Before 2006, there were numerous timeline attempts to hijack the timeline between the 2,000 various groups that were trying to dominate the inner core group of the Cabal, because it was just this endless infighting. Don't let them think they're totally in charge and that they totally have respect of everyone. They didn't. They were constantly backstabbing each other. Well, the concept evolves that they don't have total control. The energies that came in, how do I put this, separated our dream worlds. And that was really one of the first times that these timeline wars started to affect us, co-creating galactic spirits, to create fake timelines that we would addict ourselves to, and then we would dream ourselves into. So the true, how do I put it, littering of the timelines is what it was, because it was so uncontrolled. Normally when they do timeline manipulation like this, there's a single point of contact, a single point of mathematics, and it's like, like the silent, surgery room. It's scrubbed. Everything is done perfectly. But there were thousands of groups doing it to the point it just toxified everything. And in 2004 to 2006, they unified the timelines, but we as a people are still dreaming ourselves into those phantom timelines. And a lot of these things that come up, example, 2012, the big fear was on, is this true, is this true? A lot of those things were the old timelines remind you to dream them again, even though they weren't there again anymore. And we're going to go through that again. Actually, any city that's got about 6,000 or 7,000 people in it actually has its own individual Dreamtime reality that's separate of the unified whole. And so there's probably about 200, 300,000 individual Dreamtime realms, city-based realms now. You can kind of distill it down to about that many, and that's what you got to unite. That's what we as a conscious, evolving people are going to expand into, is learning how to unite these systems. There are foundations in it, and those foundations are the banks, the main Cabal's method of control, the churches, the Cabal's second method of control, and then the actual technology you hold. That is the 3 things they have over you. That's what keeps you in this fiction. That's what keeps you anchored into their version of reality. And then along comes TV. TV is its attempt to make its own dream world separate of the unified consciousness. So it's an attempt to hijack your infinite concept with finite concepts. So that's what we're coming into, people unplugging and understanding they don't need to be plugged into anything, just their own heart.
Rediscovering our galactic history, and I do believe we left off with the audit that Prime Creator had established, and that was in
March 2013, the 20th to 22nd.
Okay, and so we can pick up from that.
So they tried to use CERN to fudge the numbers. Beings got ejected from the game. Think of it in soccer, you're getting a red card. They broke the most fundamental of rules, even though rules are broken here all the time. The most fundamental ones they broke. Yeah. They got ejected from the Galactic Ascension machine and do not get to be a part of the graduating timeline. This is both light and dark beings got ejected because they were both doing nefarious things to alter prime creators will, because they had been experiencing the polarity of light and dark with no neutrality for so long that they had lost their own way. Okay?
Right.
So the light beings are ejected, the dark beings are injected. At this point, prime creator used what's known as the walk-in rule. So those that got ejected, new souls were put into their bodies and took over all of their existing contracts and timeline functions that they did. So that's the first replacement of management system.
Wow.
The second layer of replacement management system is after the timeout is over, new beings that are part of this contractual system of domination and control are going to be replaced with neutral beings who have no political objectives, no dogmas, no spiritual concept, that simply see the information, and the resolve is putting us as a species in a complete soul code.
Oh, great.
The Galactic Ascension Machine has always been about taking the 2,300 species that have been warring over this planet and creating drama and make them into a single species, and when that's done, they go back out to those races and bring the DNA wisdom that they've all been trying to hoard for themselves.
Right. That makes sense.
That resolves it. That's why they put all these planets here.
Yeah. Now, how many planets are here? And
66.
66. And why is it that we're told there are 12?
Because that's what the books are creating the reality for.
So,
as I said, there have been there's star watching societies out here. I mean, you look at some of the old Sumerian texts. They knew about Venus. They knew about Mars. They knew about them all.
Oh, yeah,
They even knew what colors they were, what water was on them, or not. They did that because they could remote experience those planets as star watching societies.
Interesting. Now, what about this, the scientific group that's trying to create an event horizon where artificial intelligence overtakes human intelligence? That sounds like another faction of these warring interests.
It's a reemergence of what took Atlantis and Lemuria down. It's always been the technology that was passed from one generation to the next that created the failures of the society. The society isn't balanced between light, dark, and neutral.
Right.
There's an overwhelming amount of lower vibration people in domination and control that are using the technology given to them, that have enough free will to realize that they can become very powerful with the simplest of technologies, like time travel technology. I've been talking a lot about these time wars to understand that everything for the last 52 million years has literally been about 2011 to 2014. Absolutely everything.
Wow.
Okay, the air cities jumping through, it's always been about the point where, think of a record, you start on the outside and you go groove to groove to groove, and that's going around the galactic central sun. And when we get to the final part, the needle gets lifted up, the arm gets put back, and we start all over again. Okay?
Yeah.
The timeline wars. In the early 1900s, when Industrial Revolution really hit, is when the time travel factions began to co-opt the governments on the largest scale. You have a military budget, and that military budget has multiple projects underneath it. Those projects have black projects, deep black projects, so on and so forth. Time travel entities knew that this would happen,
Right.
so they inserted organizations into the fundamental findings of these military organizations so that they could have budget to create black technology, even though the Congress and the Senate never knew that this technology was already working. So
Right.
every decade they'd have somebody else that came from the future back into the old timeline, in the early 1900, 1920, 20, 30, 40, to make sure that the money was appropriated and the technology was available to send people forward and backwards in time on that graduating timeline, while still creating tens of thousands fake timelines to cover up what they were doing to get the money to do it now.
Wow. Wow. So how many fake? Well, have the timelines been collapsed at this point?
All the timelines are on, since June 2011, we're on a single timeline. Though we as the manifesting, co-creating spirits can create new timelines. Think of it if you have an arm cut off. Okay?
Okay.
We still feel that arm, called ghost limb syndrome.
Yeah.
If you were born into a world that had 300,000 timelines, even though you were never aware of it,
Right.
and it's all of a sudden gone, it's still part of you.
Yeah.
And you can dream it back. So that's what these vessels in our the sylphs, the cloud ships, they're here to stop us from creating these ghost timelines again.
Okay. Okay, that sounds interesting. So now, all these black budgets are still going on.
Correct. And there's a massive black side to money. And what we're going through right now, all the stock market drops, they have to take money out of the black side and give it to the 3D matrix side and not disclose where it came from.
Right,
Okay?
right.
I've described this many times. This event will be like a Three Stooges show. It'll be the dress will go up and the underpants will be shown over and over again. It'll be slapstick how they're trying to cover it up.
Wow.
Okay?
So this is all coming. I mean, we have yet to,
We haven't yet to even experience the really humorous parts.
Right. It's all been pretty drudgy at this point, and pretty dense. But the funny part seems like they are just around the corner.
Yeah, and it'll be in waves.
Okay.
And then consciousness will relax. It's just like
Right.
waves of laughter that's come over and over again. And it'll come through unity consciousness.
At this point in time, there's all sorts of stories floating about as to the archonic grid actually being replaced by something new. How do you judge those stories? What's your aspect, your take on that?
The purpose of what we're going through now between June 2011 and August 2014 is the prime time of galactic energies for a consciousness change in this world. 560,000 years ago, the drama had gotten so bad and the galactic ascension machine wasn't functioning as a well-oiled machine. The oversouls of this planetary system and the solar system came together with the prime creator and said, we have to figure out a way to fix this. So what they did is they broke everything down into a council of 12. That council of 12 was 4 members of the light, 4 members of the dark, and 4 members of the neutral. They were tasked with taking the 2,200 invested races and soul families and reduce them through breeding into a single species, so that species could go back out to all the other dramatic areas and begin to heal those species of their karma. And that comes to where Michael and Peter talk about we are creator beings, and quite literally when we graduate here, we get our PhD in the School of Hard Knocks, and then we go back and begin healing the rest of the galaxy. But it got so bad, as I was saying, the Council of 12 couldn't come within any agreement. So one group was trying to force incarnate their versions. The light were doing the same thing until finally the light and the dark had become so polarized they couldn't accept anything about the neutral perspective. So the dark guys began going after the homeworlds of the neutral people and basically saying, I'll kill 10 billion people unless you leave. So one by one, all of the neutral parts of the Council of 12 were removed. There was a big battle between the light and dark of who would take their space, until it finally broke down to the Council of 12 was 7 dark and 5 light. And that was right around 410,000 years ago. And since then, we've been having this off-kilter incarnation grid where the archons, because the dark can bring more of their beings in, can literally control the incarnation grid and put in fine print. Well, all of the beings understood that when prime creators set up this Council of 12, that there was an end date, and that end date would be called what's the audit. And the audit is when the prime creator comes into this world and reads every soul contract from the ground up of all existence and understands the equation in total, where there are no secrets. And if the 2,200 soul families were becoming one, the Council of 12 would be allowed to continue their management. Well, they completely failed on it. March 22nd to 23rd, 2013 was the audit. They completely failed, and now the beings that are on the council are being replaced with Walkins who will complete the job.
Wow. And the job is, do you want to state what the cleanup is going to be?
It is to bring back the concept that the resolution here is that the 2,200 soul families, the 2,200 invested races here, become a single DNA race that can go back out to the galaxy and begin healing the other species are no longer connected to a tree of life, will only use cloning as a function of expanding their species, because many of these species can no longer have children naturally. They have no sex organs, they bred it out of them, and we will be beings that help them get back into a tree of life connected to a planet sacred feminine. We will teach them how to be pregnant. We will teach them how to raise children. We will teach them how to be mother and father, as well as teaching them about what it is we resolved here in the three-dimensional dramatic world.
So Earth was always meant to be a world that produced those kinds, that standard of being, obviously a very high standard of being, to clean up problems elsewhere in the galaxy. That was its original purpose?
Its original purpose was to be a galactic seed planet, to bring literally brand new life, wisdom, DNA to a blank Akashic record world.
Okay,
but it was hijacked, and the new purpose was to resolve the drama and karma between the introduction of a war. And the only way to do that was to get a massive amount of migration of spirits here, so that when it came time for graduation date, there were enough spirits to go back out into the galaxy, because the universe had been expanding ever since the very beginning parts of this drama. And there were soul families that had gone and made planets or gone away from the drama, but they still have unresolved karma, and we will be those creator beings who come there as healers, as ambassadors, to bring knowledge, to bring wisdom, and to share and break bread and begin to open up the concept that the drama has come to an end.
And it's Prime Creator's will that, having done the audit and finding the results to be unsatisfactory, that the shift to the new mode of operation will take place.
Correct. And we're in a situation where the dark guys, just before the audit, they were trying to alter Prime Creator's vision, even though he realized that. So what happened? I used this association.
Sorry, they actually tried to interfere with the boss.
Oh yeah, and they tried to create. This was from CERN, the big hadron collider in France. Its purpose was actually to block Prime Creator from the audit. It was meant to basically fudge the numbers in the audit.
They're a very bunch of cheeky employees, aren't they?
Oh yeah. Well, what happened is when they did that, they got ejected from the game. Like in football, when you get a red card, they got ejected. Well, the light guys did that too. There are some light beings that are so far up the butt of light, they only see darkness because they're so far into polarity. So quite a number of them got ejected from the game too. So a whole new layer of management needed to be brought in for the light and the dark. But at that point is where the Prime Creator literally brought the walk-in rule, where it just started. It said, if you failed at this audit and you were part of this contractual product from the very beginning, your soul that was in there was taken out, and a being that's part of the prime neutral perspective was put in, because there's no neutral perspective in the council. And that's how it's being brought into balance by all of the members of the high council, and that's the high part. The big beings are being replaced with an equivalent amount of neutral being who has no dogmas or political concepts.
So that's the correction that Prime Creator has brought about. He's reshuffled the management council.
Correct.
Literally. Fabulous. Yep. So okay, there's your management clean out. So
as well as allowing walk-ins on a mass scale on Earth.
So the allowance of walk-ins, I mean, that apparently goes back probably the best part of a century. How does this manifest on the ground? I mean, this management shuffle, is it something that happens at an instant in time, or is it something that in fact was ordained and has been happening temporally? That is the walk-ins, say March 2013, the audit was done, they failed, action was taken. Did that result in temporal shifts going back 100 years, as in temporal activities?
No and yes. Well, you got to understand, June 2011, we were brought onto a single timeline, and there's going to be a lot of people who have a tough time with this. What it was is, there's been time wars that have been going on here for a very long time, and the whole purpose of the time wars is these multidimensional beings are trying to influence the theme of our awakening. So they brought propaganda, Planet X, Nibiru, or any of that. We are creator beings, and if they bring a high amount of propaganda we will believe it and create that. And the whole point of the awakening is to claim your free will separate of the incarnation grid and allow yourself to understand Earth's original purpose. So the whole walk-in, all of that is understanding that when you take something out and replace it with something, it has to still function with all those spirit contracts that walk-in entity that they came into. And many of these entities are time travelers. And when they unified the timeline into a single stream, all the tangent streams ended. But since so many of us were on multiple timelines and never knew it, when we go to sleep, we dream ourselves into those other timelines. It's like a person who's had an arm cut off and has ghost limb syndrome. And we have to stop ourselves from creating these fake timelines again. And that's where we're at. So the neutral beings that are walk-ins are keeping the timeline a single timeline, so we live long enough to accept that, there's none of these extra timelines.
I get that there's a lot of souls that actually come from this area, but the Milky Way plays an important role, and I'm sure, Andrew, you're going to pick up on this, in our galaxy, in the way that the solar systems move, and it's kind of like the clock, and the planets are working like the hands on the clock, if you will. And it seems like the Milky Way area is what is keeping momentum going. Do you understand what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yes. You want me to add?
It does to me.
It does to all you guys, because I get it plays a very integral role in, see, now, again, if you guys don't think that there's a higher consciousness out there or a godlike source, here's one of your examples. Because when they designed these planets, they understood that the planets needed to move in order to create an evolution and to have classroom environments that would evolve and devolve. And this Milky Way seems like it pulls the planets to locations where they need to be for whatever course. And this has to do, like if you were looking at the Mayan calendar, what would be sitting in the center of the Mayan calendar that rotates everything. Andrew?
You're right on the money there. And to add another layer to it, there are 3 galaxies, not only the Milky Way here, that are interacting right now. Think of 3 circles intersecting, and in the center there's that little semi-moon of a thing where they intersect. We're in the center there, and our orbit around these galaxies is controlled by those three motions of energies. One part of the age we're affected by another galaxy, another part of the age we're affected by another galaxy, and so on and so forth. When you say it's a clock that has 3 time zones, and each time zones have different soul groups that are attached to it. And if one soul group is trying to contact another soul group on another timeline, they have to wait for the planet to go around. Until the technology came of flight in between there, it was just spiritual ways of it being done. And as technology began to spread and the spirit began to spread, the 3 galaxy consciousness themselves figured out ways to make karma between themselves, instead of just having their most powerful spirits go between the void of space between galaxies and have to live the infinite life without a planetary home. So they made people the wisdom of how to create planet ships, such as Earth and such as the Sun. And these planet ships had everything you needed on it. And they could go through space and use the various teleport gates to get to where they needed on the other side beyond the void between the 2 galaxies. And the Milky Way is representative of tens of millions of planets that were made, and then nothing was done with them, because Earth itself and the moon that's here were originally meant, before the wars came, to seed that galaxy with its DNA. But the powers that be between the three galaxies realized they could heal three galaxies instead of one. So it allowed them to co-create karma between all three.
And the other thing that I think is amazing is that as they're designing this galaxy and the movement of it through the solar system and such, they did calculate for negativity. And they knew that this would happen, and we were allowed to do it to some degree, but not to where it would knock everybody off balance. So this is how red flags are raised. But they knew that there would be negativity, but it's only allowed to go so far. And there's mechanisms in place to now rectify it, to move us forward, because everybody that's a number on our clock in our solar system, if one is falling behind, then it pulls everybody behind, so they have to keep the whole system moving. This is amazing to me. I mean, miracles like this always prove to me that there has to be a higher consciousness of love, and they allowed us to experience some negativity. It was built into the system. I just think it's genius. Andrew, you want to add anything? We're going to go to Venus next.
It is a perfect machine. All three of us have shown our psychic layers to this, and we could go deeper and deeper. There's something to see when it's for the galaxy level. In a galaxy, there's much to explore, but there are beings that inhabit each galaxy that have seen it all and are very old and very bored and want to go to other galaxies. And there are times that, they're so bored with their toys, they learn to do some not nice things. And we're at that point where those temper tantrums are done here, and our planet's going to be going through a migration. And that's what I want to say. And our home is out there as well as here.
So after 2014, the ability to coordinate, everybody's on their own?
Well, we're not in time anymore. We're not in disunity time. So it begins to dissolve their control.
Right.
Their control is based off of time. That's the fundamental axis.
Right, because of all the time wars and everything, and that all stopped.
If our belief of time changes, all their time is a microscopic piece of dust compared to the expansion.
Right, that's right. That's right.
It's a pinprick.
That's right, and that just dissolves everything. It changes the whole,
the whole paradigm.
You then have the Mayans, and their big thing, I don't want to give it the wrong language. I want to call it time counters, but it isn't. Time surveyors. That's a better way to put it. So their big thing that they could graduate, that whoever was controlling that area, if they could get 1 or 2 or 3 advanced time surveyors graduating every 100 years, they were, rich for an attorney. That was that valuable. So what a time surveyor does can go to a world in a no-time frequency and survey past, present, and future potentials and use multiple forms of precognitive DNA technology to access galactic time and universal time, and then observe it through the Akashic record of even before it's been imprinted as a planet. So they basically gives them a blueprint of what may exist in this world 1 million years from now.
Yeah. You've mentioned how, perceiving the uncreated sort of thing in many aspects, like the Australian continent and stuff. Yeah, I get it. The unconnected dreamtime realities and future stuff. Yeah.
So the first energy that comes out of the rise and fall of the sun patterns as the moving of the seasons and the patterns of the stars is instantly the Great Smoking Mirror. And this is what's known as a marker point in the historical records or the Akashic records. It signifies a time where consciousness explorers had expanded so much that they were literally challenging the forces of domination and control. So when Akashic records run into these marker points, it signifies that a part of your lifetime in a past life was very heavily advanced in the consciousness form. And what I see right away is a man in the Black Panther clan. And this man in the Black Panther clan would rise, and he was in Kulmaptal, which is a pyramid structure city south of Chichen Itza, and its specific purpose was to be a star watcher. And what you would do is you would communicate with the Black Panther clan, and their purpose was to go into the blackness and void of space and to literally psychically travel between stars. So you would be there on the top of the pyramid during the heights of the energies of Earth, and you would project your consciousness into the stars. And you would be going literally in between the void, and that is the term, the Black Panther. And the Black Panther's purpose was to look for reflections of the other self that were constantly interacting between galaxies and between stars.
Okay, so there's Giza, right? And Giza's arranged like the belt of Orion. Does that mean it was created by Oriones?
No, it was meant to, let's say if you're on one part of the planet and you focused on it, you could remote view and then co-locate into the pyramid and then send your consciousness to Orion or any of the central planets that are there and then communicate in real time with them without actually having to leave the planet.
Right. Okay. So it's more like a central. If it was the internet, it would be what they call the central trunk.
Correct.
Or a
system.
Backbone to that system. Yeah. Like it would be like Highway 66. You know, it would go from
as well as on a physical and a psychic level.
Yeah. So presumably, the whole night sky is mapped onto our planet as cross-dimensional communications devices to different parts of the sky. Does it work like that?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Well, this is good. A lot of it is kind of like, oh, I could have told you that. But, you know, a lot of it is, and this is an example of us being dumbed down because we have all this stuff in front of our face, but because of the amount of distress that's in our minds, we don't have the space to step back and say, I see that pattern matches with that pattern and that it works.
The visual patterns of the stars will begin to change. That's something else you'll see in the event, though. People that just look up and go, that should be the Big Dipper there. And there's a whole new pattern there. But not everyone will see it. It'll begin to spread and spread and spread because the reality is beginning to change. Star patterns will be different. And just looking up in the sky and seeing a star pattern from one you saw a million lifetimes ago will trigger you through your awakening process. And there will be people that find themselves experiencing the Orion Wars. They were on the ship and one of their multidimensional parts was there.
Wow.
And they look up in the sky and see the right pattern that lines up to the last thing that soul saw before he died when his ship crashed into another one.
Wow.
And it all transfers back to the person here who's the avatar of the different pieces parts out there. We're the avatars here. Avatar meaning the master consciousness that allows parts of itself to gain sovereign free will to go out and experience life so multidimensionally we can expand and learn and love and live.
So the first energy that comes out of the rise and fall of the sun patterns as the moving of the seasons and the patterns of the stars is instantly the Great Smoking Mirror. And this is what's known as a marker point in the historical records or the Akashic records. It signifies a time where consciousness explorers had expanded so much that they were literally challenging the forces of domination and control. So when Akashic records run into these marker points, it signifies that a part of your lifetime in a past life was very heavily advanced in the consciousness form. And what I see right away is a man in the Black Panther clan. And this man in the Black Panther clan would rise, and he was in Kulmaptal, which is a pyramid structure city south of Chichen Itza, and its specific purpose was to be a star watcher. And what you would do is you would communicate with the Black Panther clan, and their purpose was to go into the blackness and void of space and to literally psychically travel between stars. So you would be there on the top of the pyramid during the heights of the energies of Earth, and you would project your consciousness into the stars. And you would be going literally in between the void, and that is the term, the Black Panther. And the Black Panther's purpose was to look for reflections of the other self that were constantly interacting between galaxies and between stars. So what you were looking for was other past life versions of yourself that existed outside of the reference of Earth time, because Earth exists outside of the realities of other planets. And when the Black Panther clan began to realize this on a grand scale, they shared this information with the Green Jaguar clans, as well as with the many of the shamanic clans of Earth, so that the wisdom and understanding was very long term. You had to figure out a way in which you could transfer this wisdom to the future generations, and it was a very tough choice. Ultimately, what happened was the vast majority of these people during that time consciously ascended off of Earth, or ships came and took them off of Earth. Some in a slave format, and others in a format where, think of it like a NFL draft day, and the best of the best were drafted to go to other planets.
Okay,
and
so
you were a part. Hold on, you were a part of this drafting program. You reached out to specific clans of other worlds that were both good and evil, and set up a neutral position that was just on the outer edge of the astral world of Earth, and along with the other members of your clan, set up the draft. And free-willed people found their ways to get off of the Earth or to come onto Earth. And those that were still under the forces of domination and control were still allowed to be in this draft, but they had a different set of rules. When they left, they had to leave as slaves. But ultimately, when they had a choice to return, they would return as freed-willed. And that's what's going on right now. The big outness of this plan, where all these planet ships are out by Saturn, all of those people that got traded away are coming back now. Okay? This energy of you, this old lifetime, understood the places of power of Earth. It understood that there were chakras on Earth, there were energy centers on Earth that would never fall under domination control. And you and your clan held these secrets and passed it on from shaman's lineage to shaman's lineage all over the world, until finally it reached the peak point where the Middle Ages started, and it was so bad that the life, death, and rebirth process of the shamans that were going through there was literally hijacked. So as much as the information could be forgotten, that's why the people of Turtle Island, the Aborigines in Australia, were mass murdered, because they needed to take that out of the human recollective record of the passing from father to son, mother to daughter. They needed to eliminate that record, so the only actual record left would be the Akashic record. And if there weren't enough psychics on this world, the Akashic record itself would be left inability to tap into. And your particular soul format here is understanding that the new abilities of your soul now is to advance yourself into the full self-expression of the Star Watcher that you were. It is only through the seeing of the stars and the expansion of your consciousness into the stars where you understand the full self-expression of your lifetime. Because once again, you're going to find yourself forming a draft-type process. And that draft is to bring people that are free-willed returning who left as slaves, to draft them into this world as new souls who will be co-created healers and not people of domination and control. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, I understand what you're saying. Some other people might be confused, but I know who I am. And
I know you know who you are. Now, the next layer here, this is your dream direction. And in your dream direction, your soul functions with the Black Jaguar clan. And one of the reasons you don't remember your dreams is because the Black Jaguar clan is actually blocking it out of you right now. And there's a very specific reason. The current family that you grew up in.
Before we go on, is that good or bad? Go ahead.
It's good, actually. It's a protective nature. The family that you were born into now is actually what I call a breeder family. There are, as I said, there are multidimensional beings who are so big they can't fit into a single human body. So they'll split themselves up into millions of separate people with separate incarnation rituals. And what they've done is had whole groups of soul families that they can breed with. So there's always a future body for them to send new sparks to. And your soul family is a part of that breeder group. And there's thousands of breeder groups out there. But you purposely went into that breeder group as a Black Jaguar clan former shaman, and you disguised who you were. You used the blackness of the Jaguar so that the forces of domination and control would not understand what kind of soul you are. 705, can you mute your phone? 705, can you mute your phone? Thanks. They literally, you're like a secret agent. You're like a planted agent inside that soul group. So your spirit, your Black Jaguar clan dreamer spirit, can function with the Oversoul family, that's the breeder group, and understand on a very deep level what the forces of domination and control are doing, and then transfers that information back into the collective grid of the resistance of Free Earth.
Time gets redefined at this point. It isn't anywhere like we see now. So when we see people in books saying 300,000 BC it was this, 200,000 BC, it isn't that, because time doesn't work like that in the past. We're basing it off of our time. Time here right now is just a social agreement.
Yeah.
How many calendars do we have in this world? How many time dates do we have? Universal time, Greenwich Mean Time, Daylight Savings Time. Time is social. It's not a universal concept anymore. So when we try to gradiate backwards what time is, it begins to fail because our written history has been manipulated by time travel.
So how would I translate that then into a skill that's usable? Because currently, what the skill I've developed is I actually read the records for others. I'm just starting to read for others.
Okay. Well, I kind of knew that.
I'm sorry?
I kind of knew that. And the answer, the answer is, how many people are you really ready to hear you? Are you, this being right now, are you ready to be on stage? And what kind of stage forum do you want to be on to learn how to be on the stage and forum?
I felt I was on the threshold, and I was thrown into a situation that occurred in my life.
Can you bring the phone a little closer to you? It's hard to hear you.
Okay. So I was on the threshold of it. I was developing a website, and then something happened in my personal life that just threw me off into a really low density. And I have just put it aside for the moment to take care of those issues in my life.
Okay. So
because I have to have a certain frequency to do it.
Oh, I absolutely understand that, though. And this is why I'm in the studio today recording a bunch of readings, and you are our third one today, because stuff happens in life that you have to take care of. And I get that. So anyone that's on a spiritual mission, when you leave the mission and you come back to it, it's like you've never left it, and it's just there waiting for you to pick it back up. Nothing is lost. So when things happen, that is where more and more of your focus must be put into. We are also at a time where you have gone through the separation of densities, and the reason that thing happened was
it's not a match for your frequency going into the future, being that type of person that's reading in the public. You couldn't have that silent frequency of passive aggressiveness around you. You needed a procreative, co-creative personality that wasn't in justice and judgment of you or any situation that you're in. Therefore, that thing had to go before you could create this next level. Okay? So the next thing is, well, you're in it. Well, you also get a choice. You've dealt with it. Now, what can I do to create for the now? And my answer for you is, you are learning to read for others. Dedicate 1 hour a week where you try to give yourself your own session, where you can just turn on your computer with a little webcam and just record yourself doing a 3-minute reading for yourself. And just pretend for yourself that the person in front of the camera is the person on the other side of the reading that you're doing. Read them, read their aura through your own computer. Get that skill. So 1 or 2 hours a week for you was going to do vitals for your linguistics when you are trying to empathically connect to a group of people or to one specific person who may have a teaching that can heal hundreds or thousands of others. You have that key inside you. You have we'll call this a golden key to many different soul families healing. And what that golden key is a particular soul code frequency to a planet called Ikwahika. Now, the Ikwahika is a planet that we will, in English terms, call a ghost planet, meaning this planet had reached an age where it decided that it was no longer going to extend a contract to a solar system, at the same time no longer extend a contract to a galaxy, and becoming a free-roaming universal planet only existing in universal time. So they were completely separate of all of the other realities in the universe and only could interact with the layer of the universe that was at universal time. And they went to the edges of the universe and expanded and explored. And this particular frequency is something you have to realize is in your light body, to be at the universal perspective in the body itself. I could liken it to what I do, and very much. The only thing that's holding you back is hesitation in linguistics.
That's true.
That's it. So my advice is go look at some of the study guides that kids had for SATs or ACTs and look for the language ones. Like one I remember when I took my SAT was the word aggrandizement. Okay? There are linguistical patterns that you can learn that will apply to all the teachings that you already know. And then inside those teachings that you already know are memories, inside DNA memories that are the completions to that story. And I told you about that solar frequency. When you begin to connect to people at universal scale, instantly their soul recognizes it, and the body programs, those 20% of the DNA that isn't memory, has to figure out how to calibrate or push away universal time. The body ultimately knows what universal time is because it started as a fetus of universal time. So we have it in us to recognize universal time. And this skill of bringing forth that particular soul code of universal time only means you have a very powerful connection of helping people let go of the perception of time, which is the perception of debt here. And I described her as a record reader, similar to what I can do, but in a very different way. It is through her universal time source. So those beings that go to her that
the only healing that's going to get them through their karmic retribution of being in the machine is to understand source time at the biggest scale they can try to perceive as this I am presence technology. And that is the gift that they will take out to the rest of the universe as they say, I'm done with Earth, I've learned the lessons, and I'm now going with source time frequency. In each planet that I go to, I will reconnect to source time frequency until I am back at the galactic or universal central sun. And then again, I'll go through a spiritual rebirth and then invest back into the universe as a source time frequency being.
And that was so amazing how the teaching in itself, when you explain to Irene universal time, how we are all part of that, how we were all born to that source, and then all the different aspects of time, and how we can reconnect. You took us all with your words through that process and understanding, and I was quite deeply impacted by that, because a few more depth of understandings came through, a few more layers. Did you find that as well, Debbie? There were like a few more layers when he was saying those words, that it was just like, yes, there was an expansion of consciousness, an expansion of something more. It was quite incredible.
And also what I've found really fascinating too is what you're talking about, that the memories are in our DNA that come through those frequencies from universal time, and so we can sort of go into that and connect to that universal time.
DNA has memories. Memories are what? Photonic light that at some point was in a shared or conjoined reality between two beings who used reality rules to create sound through light, through manifestation through a body. So a DNA memory that comes from source time is from something that was 2, 3, 4, or 500 strands of consciousness, and an experience that it had is in your DNA skin suit and can only be perceived through an understanding of source time.
Right.
It is that compacted inside the little Russian egg inside the Russian egg, except this is reverse. We're the tiniest little thing, and the bigger and bigger scale is your universal source timeness. So can the Russian egg, the smallest one inside, undo itself? And that is sometimes a big lesson that many, many beings have to come to learn. And our DNA memories represent that great lesson of graduation into source time, but still being I am presence enough to be in now time as beings in unified photonic light over all of our span of memories that are soul sharded in out many hundreds of galaxies or universes.
Yes, I remember there's a mantra that I used to work with, and I think everybody has their own, but there was one where I just call forth that I expand and expand and expand my mind and my consciousness to the omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent. I expand, and I keep on calling that forth so that I remember
consciously
again.
Manifesting it.
Yes.
Not in a recreational mode.
No, it's that willful determination. It's the calling it forth, sending out that message, calling it forth, the remembrance.
Debbie, what is your view on that willful determination side? I know we've all had those moments where without willful determination, we wouldn't be who we are today.
Exactly, and I know that especially when you're in certain circumstances in your life, you get to a certain point, you really have to bring up that willful determination to get yourself out of that hole or whatever it is that you find yourself in life experiences. So I really find that useful.
So when it comes to meditation and forceful determination, when you're fending off entities, it's the same skill set.
When I'm
fending off an entity that's trying to get into you.
Oh, yes.
That's the same skill set. It's just perceived and used differently.
Indeed, absolutely. I mean, and sometimes you really have to get into it, and especially when the pressure is immense and you can feel they're enforcing themselves into your space. I mean, I've seen you get in there, Debbie, like you just get all like almighty when that force blows through you. You're just filled with it, It's
an experience that I had with you guys, right?
Yeah.
Well, we'll kick into the discussion, and we're actually going to start off today with a review of time. What is time? And I presume a discussion about how our perceptions of time are going to change in the reasonably close future. So, Andrew, how do you want to kick this off?
I'll give a description. I did this on the two other shows. And I describe time as a sine wave of energy that's spiraling around a galactic central sun. Each solar system has its own unique sine wave based off of the pattern that it goes around in the central sun. Each planet inside the solar system has its own subcarrier wave inside the master solar time wave. Some planets have, the best way to describe it, a North Pole and a South Pole with two different times. Earth has 3 subcarrier waves of time, a North Pole, South Pole, and a central time. Each one of those is set up purposely and with a distinct purpose so that all entities that are experiencing a central timeline can function with soul family above and below your timeline. So there's always an integration pattern here in this planetary structure that keeps the bottleneck of soul families from making a massive traffic jam. We're coming to a point in our history where we're going out of a very dense part of space where the sine wave of our solar system is very compacted, and the part of space we're going into is not dense at all. So the very front part of our solar system, the leading edge planets, are already accelerated into that less dense area. And the whole time wave is starting to expand out now. And Earth and Mars are the 2 anchor planets right now, where our consciousness is literally the only thing that's holding us back into this lighter density space. This stretching effect of time is literally what the event is going to be, where we as Mars and Earth come out of the final part of our consciousness that's anchoring us in the more dense spot, and we come into alignment with the brand new solar system's new carrier wave of time based off its position to the galactic central sun and the actual density of the space. So the event is a consciousness exploration event. The event is a dream time situation, and the event is also a rescaling of time back to the natural evolutionary way that time is counted, other than the social agreement that we're functioning in this matrix right now. A long, long time ago, when we were still a very young species, we used this social agreement of time because of our 3 concentric time situations above and below and within. And this was to limit people as well as to expand the amount of souls that could migrate here. That phase is coming to an end where the social agreement of time will no longer be valid in any way, shape, or form, and all the sciences that use that counting form of time will simply have no validation within them anymore.
That's a very interesting proposition. How does that actually play out in day-to-day life when the social agreement of time is no longer valid? What does time look like on a daily basis?
Time is experience. Many, many beings, the way they age is through the experience. If you go and you have an experience with a friend, you'll age from that. If you go and have a very powerful experience with another woman, you'll age from that. You would only age based off of your experiences that you do.
So if you don't do anything, you'll be forever young?
Well, no, you just will lose out on interacting with the world, and this world keeps you in motion and in action. Just living in the world is an experience. So if you want to live your personal sine wave of time on the planet, if you want it to be very slow, it can be very slow. You can become a tree and still have the entire sentience and enter the dream time. That functions right now the way it is. The trees can enter the dream time. The animals can enter the dream time. But we're really separate of them because of the sacred geometry cities. And it's come to a point where the sacred geometry cities will no longer function as dream catchers. And all sentient here will share unified dream time, as well as being able to control the way that they experience time during their awake sessions here. And your experience here will determine how you age.
Okay, so we're going to literally enter dream time as one united species, along with the rest of the conscious things on the planet.
All sentient kind here on this planet, and all sentient kind invested into our freedom.
How will science be affected then? And there's an awful lot of, say, mathematics behind science. In fact, it's pretty much all mathematics. So you're saying that will no longer be valid. It won't actually be able to be used by them to predict events in the natural world. You know, like dropping a ball out of a tree will take a certain amount of time, in inverted commas.
That's based off of Newton's theory of gravity. Well, we'll learn that gravity pushes, it doesn't pull. We'll learn that our basic concepts of science are fundamentally flawed. Here's a very good example. In the early 1900s, when the Wright brothers were going to fly their airplane, the science community of the whole world came together and created mathematical formulas that said it's impossible, absolutely impossible in all of history for any human being to fly. And they had these mathematical concepts that proved the wing theory couldn't possibly exist or function. A little more than 2 years later, you had Kitty Hawk, and then a little more than 8 years later, you had airplanes falling all over the world. The same thing was with the Einstein-Rosenberg bridge, the same thing about faster than light. CERN just proved faster than light. Science constantly proves itself wrong. And this will be another one of those stages where science not only proves itself wrong, but the spiritual people will go to the scientists and say, hey, I need you to be invested, involved in this world, separate of this dogmatic concept that we've had. Where do we begin to break bread?
That will become incredibly hard for a lot of academic scientists. They're going to have a very, very interesting and difficult period of time adjusting to that.
Well, the people in the 20s had a very difficult time adjusting to the rapid change in technology. You know, you went from, having an outhouse to indoor plumbing in 20 years.
I want to bring your energy up a little bit. So as I've been speaking with you, I've noticed that there's a couple feeding tubes that are attached to your lower chakra. And one of this is the situation in which you just left. There's so much love there, and at the same time, so much disappointment. And you're just trying to feed some angelic beings that are trying to bring peace and balance to it. But ultimately, there is going to be no peace and balance. There's a different set of ancestors and angels that need to be there. So would you mind just doing a little I am presence work with me?
Not at all.
So just repeat after me for a second. I, in the ever-present moment,
I, in the ever-present moment,
choose to open a spiritual court of equity.
Choose to open a spiritual court of equity.
So I may find remedy and resolve.
I missed the first part of that, Andrew.
So I may find remedy and resolve.
So I might find remedy and resolve.
With all energies interacting with polarity.
With all energies interacting with polarities.
I bring all expressions of energy.
I bring all expressions of energy.
And all impressions of energy.
And all impressions of energy.
To zero balance.
Zero balance.
For this moment in no time.
For this moment in no time.
I stop broadcasting who I am.
I stop broadcasting who I am.
I become myself in all forms.
I become myself in all forms.
I disconnect all other feeding tubes.
I disconnect all other feeding tubes.
That allow me to be in this state.
That allow me to be in this state.
Or disallow me to be in this state.
Or disallow me to be in this state.
This is the point of my quantum interaction.
This is the point of my quantum interaction.
With the application of sacred space.
Did you say with the application of sacred space?
Correct. This space.
This space.
Is my heart.
Is my heart.
I remove from my heart all balances of energy in the negative.
I remove from my heart all balances of negativity in my
heart.
Energy in my heart.
That has prevented me.
That has prevented me.
From seeing the wisdom of my website.
From seeing the wisdom of my website.
My business.
My business.
and my third and fourth dimensional impact onto all that I see.
And my third and fourth interdimensional aspect.
In dimensional expression.
In dimensional expression.
Okay. I open up my soul frequency.
I open up my soul frequency.
To universal time.
To universal time.
I connect all of my knowingness and wisdom.
I connect all of my knowingness and wisdom.
To every fiber of my body.
To every fiber of my body.
I nourish and cleanse myself.
I nourish and cleanse myself.
Of all expressions of fraud time.
Of all expression of
broad time.
Broad time.
So I may understand true universal time.
So I may understand true universal time.
In these two legs manifest.
In these two
legs
manifest.
Okay. How does that feel?
Feels like kind of a lightness around my heart, which I've had issues with the past few weeks.
I know. I'm at a point where what I'm trying to remove from your heart energy is something that just has to go very slow. This is not something you can just break off and let the chunks of ice fall off. This is something that has to go very, very slow. So there are times when I run across people that I'm reading that have heart issues like this. And for you, it's about understanding the next meditation process that you can incorporate to yourself is replacing the waters of your pericardium. Now, the pericardium is a fluid sac that surrounds the heart and protects the heart, and it is literally the psychic machine that creates sacred space. So I would like for you to pick up a book on anatomy and physiology and just read about the pericardium, and then to begin to incorporate it into your meditations and incorporate it into your imagery that your pericardium is where the sacred space blooms around you so your true heart energies can open up. Think of a vacuum cleaner bag. The vacuum cleaner bag is very full, and that's where your pericardium is. You're going to dump it out and replace it with brand new programmable water. So one expression I'd like for you to try is to each night get some kind of cup or glass that you can put in the freezer, and I want you to make ice. And you're going to impress into this ice a very clean and powerful healing energy. You may even want to open up your skill of the Akashic energy and just give it a raw stream that has no words. And then I want you to put that cup in the freezer and freeze it. And then you can use that as a bath. You'll be able to put that ice into your bath. You could also, if you'd like, freeze it and pray over it many times, several times in a day or several times each day over a week, and then take a bath in it. Okay. You could also put that ice on top of your heart or any place that you hurt for a short period of time and then put it back in the freezer. It is your own alchemical process to begin for your body and your hands to know that you're transitioning the dense energies out of your waters and replacing it with a brand new program of lightness.
That's very interesting that you should bring the heart up, because in a meditation about 5 weeks ago, when I was coming back after traveling dimensionally, it was as though somebody superimposed a crystal heart over my heart. I could feel it just click into place, and ever since then, my heart, it's like I have two hearts, and one of them is beating out of time. So when I lay down in the evening, it's like two hearts beating, one of them out of time. The doctor says there's nothing wrong with my heart.
There's not. What it is I've just described 2 times. Okay, the two heart beating also represents the Native American expression called the heartbeat of Earth Mother. When you are a fetus in the womb and you have your first expression of sound that's converted into light, that's converted into sound, and that sound is converted back into a light expression, you hear your heartbeat and the heartbeat of your mother. And that's known as the heartbeat of Earth. And when you become a shamanic drummer, that is one of the most highest expressions you can do, where your drumming matches the heartbeat of Earth, and you become two hearts become one. You have an extraplanetary heart space thumping universal time into your source stream. Okay?
Yes.
So what does that mean? In your heart of hearts, it's time to change to universal time, to let go of dogmas, to let go of all the things being projected at you and go, I don't need that. It's my own universal expression. Much like I did when I made a choice to be public. Again, I can say you could do what I could do. It's just a matter of practicing it enough so the linguistics transfers over. And I welcome you into this field. I cannot wait till there's tens of thousands of people that can do what I can do.
Yes. I feel so joyful when I do that work. It's just I feel so at home there. It's incredible to connect with another human being like that.
It's your purpose.
Right.
And now take it to the next level. Take it to the next level.
When I was told about 14 months ago in a meditation that I was a shaman, I honestly had to Google it because I really didn't know what that was. I knew it was American Indian, but I didn't know there were females. And after that, I asked what my skill was, and I found that I could read the records. And
you're a storyteller. Twisted hair. Twisted hair is where once they chose to be the storyteller in energy from birth, their mother and father would begin to twist a braid in their hair, and they get a new one for each master story that they told by the fire, until they'd have one really long braid of twisted hair that literally was a code that if somebody else went and touched the braids, they'd understand all the stories they told because their codes were all into the knot of the braid. Right.
The pericardium training you gave her was quite incredible. I mean, that whole verse and the way you brought her through the different aspects at the end, I mean, that was just so incredibly powerful.
Bringing ourselves to the center of the heart can be a discipline of meditation.
Yeah.
And that's what I tried to show in this type of revocation there at the end, of how to invoke also a different state of presence within yourself. When you take that conscious, active, sacred application of mental imagery through meditation, you're completing a discipline that can complete soul circuitry that allows much more of your spark to be sovereign inside yourself without the programs limiting its ability for you to invest.
That's right.
What else will be some of the impacts that we can look for as part of the signs that we're truly in the wave of awakening and
the dreams like I've described before?
All right.
It's going to come on subtly, and then people are going to go, where did this all come? And they're going to look with hindsight, it's been here a while. There'll be a lot of people that will deny their dreams, but how often can you deny your dreams if you're having them 4, 5, or 6 days a week and shit coming true?
Right. So that's like in a sense, it's like a bleed through of the truth.
Yes.
And a dispelling of the illusion, so people will start seeing what's really there.
So they can see no time.
Yeah. And that's led
no
by
social agreement time.
No,
to clarify that. No social agreement
time.
Time we're living on is a social agreement.
Right, and that will, because there is no time.
There's no time defined as social agreement. There's galactic time, which is based off of your solar system in revolution from the galactic central sun, and your solar system is a sine wave that represents the total population of consciousness on a graph of energy.
It's a unified dream time. You all have experienced it. As for contracts, your personal perspective, I too totally understand it because I've downloaded everyone's Akashic records here. And separate of that, a soul contract is written in a soul language of transparency, and it holds no power over anyone. It can be eliminated at any time. But because we go through the birth canal of forgetting, beings of domination and control have inserted fine print into those contracts, and that's where we're at now, where we're eliminating that fine print so we can all experience the final curtain call. But even when the curtain falls, time goes on. We return to the original concept of time. That's how our solar system goes through the galaxy, through the different densities and layers, and how that solar system interacts with the density of other layers of other planets using other versions of time. We're going to end the social agreement of time. That's the curtain call. But after the curtain call is done, all of the resolution of karma and knowledge and wisdom that we've learned here must be put into action so that the rest of the universe understands what it is we've learned here. We'll go back out and be creator and manifestor beings, back out there and teachers to the universe.
Fascinating. So the whole, like, tuning into Earth thing, when did that all start?
You're too old to not realize you were part of the creating of it.
I have been told that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when did you first say, I'm going to put my name on this approval of the plan? Because you were part of the creating of the plan too.
Yeah. You've mentioned created beings recently in some shows,
so not founder beings, no. I'm talking like the actual creation of the Galactic Ascension Machine, the original creation of Earth before the Galactic Ascension Machine was created, when Earth was just a planet out there compared to a bunch of other planets that was in non-free willed universe. Before our universe became free willed, you were already here, fully established, and a part of the paradigm that was going to create a seventh density galactic seed planet, because you knew full well that there was a massive immigration of people that were going to come to this universe after it became free willed, and you wanted to create a inter-universal infrastructure of how to get life to these new places.
Yeah, and I mean, I've felt that, and that's why I'm here in this life, aware with all the stuff. I'm in the game, so to speak.
You're here because Earth becomes the focus point for that original dream to actually come to fruition. Earth can create 200 womb chakras. It can create its own portals and gateways greater than 1,000 suns combined. Most suns can only connect to a few thousand different places. One portal on Earth can connect to every place in the universe, even the places not connected, not created yet. That's the uniqueness of Earth. Every individual being can't have an infinite space living on this world. Imagine 7,300,000,000 human beings, each with their own infinite space.
A lot of potential.
A lot of potential. And when everything has its own infinite space, the levels of creation that we are challenged with is why you came here to Earth. Why you're still here. You got soul shards all spread throughout the universe, as do many others. But it is this Andre of this lifetime, that this I am presence, that is going to earn the victory passage feather that says, I survived the Galactic Ascension Machine, and I came out the other side an 8-color experiencing being. No other version of Andre is going to have that badge of honor.
Yeah.
That's
and
why
you talk. Yeah, you talk about the 8th color and the soul thing that I mentioned that I saw myself as a golden child. Is that an expression of the 8th color relative to me, or generally? Or?
No. That is a previous incarnated version of you who came in as the golden child when we were a 6-color experiencing world where the 7th color was stolen from us. And there was a large variety of external beings who forced their way inside here and brought the 7th color back.
Fascinating.
Yeah. I haven't actually talked about that because Earth started as a 7th density world. and then reduce to 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We are 7 color experiencing beings in a third density world. And there's 4 colors missing? Or do we actually have to be the ones that manifest our light here for the other 4 colors to exist? That was one of the fundamental reality programs that they try to change here, was to take the prism out of the third eye so that it couldn't create all 7 colors.
Thank you, mate. Thank you.
All right, everyone.
So here we are at Mount Shasta, and
the city of Telos there.
The city of Telos is...
I've been finding myself, how do I describe this? Existing there, and existing here, and existing other places at the same time. I'm here right now, but there's a part of me that's on the mountain looking at the mountain and the sun setting. And that energy of the sunset is being transmitted to me here, so I may stay in this quantum field of no energy and make the Akashic record open to any question.
Now, what about the stargates?
Good question. The stargates are based off of our womb chakras. A stargate can open in a womb chakra, and that DNA wisdom and the physical inhabitants there can be transported through our sun to any planet that has our soul codes, or solar system that has our soul codes. This world has a complete set of soul codes to all galaxies.
Wow. So this is a very advantageous place to be, as difficult and horrific as it has been.
It's the piece of the pie everyone wants.
Wow. Wow.
That's why this drama has been gone on and on and on and on. There were galaxies that weren't even created yet, and we still had the soul codes to them.
Wow.
That's the crazy part.
Yeah. Interesting.
Now, I've also said in many interviews, not only am I connected to the Akashic record of this world, but 20,000 other worlds. And to be the galactic historian, you have to have lived in all of those worlds and been true soul family to all of them and had true love with each member of that soul lineage. When I interfunction with all 20,000 Akashic records as a single one, at times there's a perspective difference. And me, the human, has to create linguistics that help us understand. Some of the information that I brought up has actually disturbed some of the other galactic entities that are listening into this conversation, because they do. They listen into many of our shows because they're observing us and at the same time allowing the information to go through them, because there's stuff that they don't know. And doesn't make me special. I'm in no field. I'm reading the quantum energy simply because I'm allowing my heart space to exist and allow the flow to be complete. So I'm at a point where all 20,000 Akashic records are single now, and I've understand all the different perspectives. And all these different perspectives that are coming out are what helping these beings that are enforcing the quarantine to give them more hope. To give us hope, to reclaim our sovereignty, reclaim our free will, to get us on the path of being whole species, in unity instead of disunity.
Right, right. I don't know anybody that's not completely saddened by the disunity on this planet. Every direction you turn, you see it, you feel it, you experience it, and that's something we need to break through.
Right.
Which is why we're doing this show, or this interview, so that we can move through the fear and the hopelessness.
Get beyond it.
Right.
I mean, I know there are people that are having difficulties comprehending this, and at times you'll have to go through and listen 2 or 3 or 4 times. I've done other shows where they've gone viral, and the shows that brought you here, I speak in layers, and I'll be absolutely honest. I speak in layers because I'm speaking to each and every one of you individually and as a complete archive. Everyone that's listening live and everyone that's listening in the future archives, you exist right now in this no-time field. And the energies of the Akashic record you are bringing to this energy. Even if you're not listening to it until this exact second, you hit play and you see me saying this. Okay?
Yeah.
Here right now, there are millions of people listening to this, for me.
Yeah.
But there's just 3 of us in the room right now.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's amazing.
The next part is that fetus in the womb. That is one of the all-encompassing teaching. No matter if you're from Alpha Centauri or Earth, we all began with the same birthing process. That's our commonality amongst everything. Fetus and a womb. Contemplate that. That is where the law of one comes in, reminds us that each and every one comes from the same universal source. There is an astral world that is a non-agenda based 4th density and 5th density out there. When we come into a frequency of life, part of our soul is here on an agenda. And the separation we are experiencing is the challenge that we, the I Am, in the technology have to go and make a bridge that gets between the great the valley below, so we can get to the other side of the unlimited point of view. And as 3rd density I Am selves, when we make it our mission each and every day to expand and explore the unlimited point of view, by identifying our limitations, especially knowing when we are personally arguing for our limitations. When you know when you're arguing for your limitation and you let it slide by, you're doing some of the greatest damage to yourself. The fetus in the mother's womb, it is a teaching that helps you get back to your original dream source, to that original dream stream of you that came into the fetus. That 4 cells of separation. There is where you can begin a companionship with the original dreaming being that is you. Through guided meditation, the heart meditation, and all the different ones that are coming up that use the fetus in the mother's womb as colloquial now terminology to trigger your placebo powers. We live in a placebo-based reality. When we learn to advance our reality, we can advance our ability to connect to dream space, the great I Am dream space of lucidity. So many people come to me with dreams of flying or swimming or traveling the stars or living in other previous times. When we have those intense dreams, they mean something. They challenge us to really look what they are. When we learn to advance our dream through the fetus, we are able to find out why we have an agenda-based side to that memory of that dream that has lasted to that moment of you going, what is it about? Taking up the challenge of advancing lucidity is one of those things that is going to be learned and learned and relearned over and over again. And it'll be about refining your sacred discipline so that you can target just before you go to sleep with your guided, intended, direct prayer as you sleep. go through the sleep paralysis process into full REM, full control with the I am lucidity until the moment that the sleep paralysis wears off and you are beginning to awaken, and all of those memories are still connected to the original prayer being who was going to sleep. And that first 10 minutes, for 20 minutes, first 30 minutes of your morning are yours before the system can engage Roman numeral time to you. Adhering to those basic fundamentals will put you light years behind any other esoteric practitioner out there right now. Letting go of Roman numeral time when you wake up. Making that your personal sacred discipline and a way to give the great middle finger to the system, saying, I am number one. I am the apex of my reality. I refuse Roman numeral time when I wake up in the morning until such a time that I engage it in my sacred bubble of reality with my rules, boundaries, and borders enforced. That is living the mystical life daily. And that is the opportunity and the challenge within the opportunity to create and co-create your own sacred path for your own sacred purpose with the teachings embedded and placed in the fetus in the womb all the way up to the moment that you are now, because time is not a constant anymore. When one learns through the fetus in the womb process that time isn't a constant, they can find the most damaged times of their life and connect to that being, not just the fetus. By advancing the dream to go to the fetus means everything in between is much easier to get. It's the wholeness of the expression. So if you were depressed when you were 13, brokenhearted when you were 19, redoing your life when you were 55, all of those moments you can go back and find the most harshest times you were in and speak to that person like they were the fetus in your womb, because they are no different. No different. It'll be a choice for you to engage that sacred discipline, to use the teaching of the fetus in the womb, to use the alchemy of creation, to use manifesting the will, to understand the placebo-based reality that you're in, so you can go to the next level and retain what you've learned so you can thrive to the unlimited levels in an unlimited point of view. This is a shamanic recipe for advancing one's consciousness. Now, a lot of people say, I don't have the time to do this. I don't have the space. I doubt myself. The flow of information is too fast. Each and one of those things is ultimately arguing for your limitation. At what point will you give yourself time? At what point will you believe in yourself? At what point will the information not be too much for you? Create different sets of choice points within inside your arguing of limitations. Change your point of view. So if there is no sacred space for you to do it in, why are you there? Write down in your notebooks. Allow the juxtaposition of your own position to teach you how to get out of it or how to understand to work within it. Doubt. The first seed of doubt that comes in, people are lost. Taking the old proverbial Roundup, Monsanto Roundup, right to doubt, the seed of doubt, so it doesn't come back up. That will be you targeting in your own memories from the know thyself process by choosing to make ceremony of recreating your life story. One of the greatest teachings out there is know thyself. Recounting your own life story in a ceremonial format that you call your personal ceremony of victories, where you show through the joy of yourself the great victories you've gone through by presenting in your out loud, name it to claim it format. That is what living the mystical life daily is. That allows our voice, which is sound, and sound is just light in another form, that can transmit directly through the brain and make memories that are experiences that become mystical. Just like those dreams that have been in you since you were 6, or that mystical experience you had in 1966. All of those expressions are here in the now if you should choose to co-create with the mystical at the next level. Co-creation with the mystical at the next level requires discernment. This is another age-old teaching. The hardest work is the self-work. And this is where the first big teaching of discernment exists. How much self-work is enough self-work, and how much self-work is being lazy and not admitting it to oneself. How much self-work in discernment is one going to do when they're saying, I have no space, I have no time, and I doubt in myself? At what layer and level will one use their own discernment on their own instantaneous answers to whatever's presented to them? That is a challenge and an opportunity to live the mystical life daily. It is an open source, choiced, point-based, name it to claim it, border and boundary system of direct manifestation of your will through the knowledge and wisdom of expansion of knowledge and contraction of knowledge, based off of what you've learned in the past to what you've learned into the now and what you've dreamed up in the future as all potentials within you, because you know thyself. You have taken the time to say, I am this person who did go through these victories, who did go through these moments of self-defeat, but have learned and relearned and manifested through my alchemy of creation, my story in a written format or song or art format that says I manifested this to say I went through these victories. That is ancient as ancient as ancient. Since the dawn of consciousness in itself, people have manifested things to show themselves the victory. These are our legacies we leave for our future selves and our future generations. There are many who want to take the legacy to the next level and assist our entire species at the transition. This is the next thing living the mystical life daily offers you. The discernment of what layer and level that you want to operate in, where you feel comfortable in, because it is your choice to manifest in your bubble reality. If you wish to have guides, guardians, and angels that are protectors and armor creators, then they will be there. If you wish galactic and universal council, they will be there too. But at each level that you want to create at, you must understand the level of awareness that you are working at means you have a responsibility to be equal with it. If you are working at the Galactic and Universal Council level, then you are going to be challenged each and every day. How much sacred work have you done? How clear is your field? How much spiritual hygiene have you done? Equal to your level of awareness. When you are working at those highest layers, you must be impeccable with your spiritual hygiene. But who's the one that is internally going through the checks and balances? Did I actually follow through? We all must have those internal checks and balances so we can understand the different scales that we are working on.